Welcome back to the greatest Fallout lore series on YouTube and maybe possibly on the internet forever. We're reacting to the entire story of Fallout 3 today. This is going to be a good one. It's going to be a long one. And I can't wait. The juicy lore. It's so good. It's so good, man. I was going to do Fallout 2 lore and really dive deep into that, but I think I'm going to do Fallout 3, get some lore for that, and then do Fallout New Vegas, and then jump back to Fallout 2, because a lot of them, it's like Fallout 2 really built what Fallout New Vegas was to become. And I feel like I'm going to be missing a lot of stuff if I don't just go ahead and react to Fallout 3 and New Vegas lore, and then do like whole videos on the Enclave and Brotherhood of Steel and things like that.
Hello, and welcome to the latest installment of Law & Order, the video series where I look at and unpack stories from games. In this one, we'll be looking at Bethesda's Fallout 3. In 2007, Bethesda managed to acquire the Fallout franchise from Interplay Entertainment, and around a year later we got Fallout 3, this open-world RPG defined, at least for me, games designed around exploration and discovering all that that world has to offer.
I actually missed this game. Like, when it came out, I had no idea. I wasn't really playing Xbox 360 games at that time. The ones that I was playing was, like, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I was playing, Halo 3 and Halo Reach. I was playing multiplayer games at that time. I wasn't really playing single player or RPGs. I didn't get around to Fallout until Fallout New Vegas came out, and I didn't like it. I didn't like Fallout New Vegas when it first came out. I thought it was weird. I thought it was slow. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel good. It was really buggy. I thought it looked really ugly. But now it's my favorite one. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I'm glad I gave it a second chance when I did, back around the time Skyrim came out.
With tons of side quests and NPC interactions. It's still, to this day, one of the best open world games I've ever played. You leave the vault, they start you in the middle of the map, and you can basically do whatever you like. The game had a horror element to it.
I think Fallout 3 is the Fallout game that I've played the least out of the three 3D games.
With there being plenty of horrors to encounter, such as the ferocious Deathclaws and exploring the insanely creepy Dunwich building. In this video, I'll be discussing the main plotline of Fallout 3, and after that we'll be diving deeper into certain elements of the story. There will be a video coming on the vaults of Fallout 3, so we won't be looking at the vaults in depth in this video.
Definitely going to be checking that out in the last video. I was going to go ahead and do that for today's episode, but he said to watch this one first, so I'm watching this one first.
Make sure you turn on notifications so you can be informed when that video releases. The lore in this franchise is massive and deep, so I've decided to cover each game in separate videos rather than one long one. Finally, even though this game is pretty old, there will be spoilers in this video for Fallout 3 and some spoilers for the TV series too, so please be aware of that before continuing on.
And I've seen the Fallout TV series. I've done everything in Fallout 3. It's just been years, so I'm probably going to be missing a lot of information, forgetting a lot of information, but I'll be reminded of some things every once in a while, and I have something to say.
With all that out the way, let's begin.
The plot.
It's the 13th of July 2258. Nearly 200 years have passed since the world was plunged into a post-nuclear Armageddon. Some of the lucky citizens of the US were fortunate enough to be able to escape into...
You think we're going to get a Fallout Shelter too? I think that's probably going to be a thing that's going to happen, because this is the most profitable, I think, profitable game that Bethesda has. I was going to say most profitable Fallout. Profitable.
State-of-the-art subterranean vaults, constructed and managed by a company named Vault-Tec. A man named James and his wife Catherine were expecting, and on this day, they had a child. The sex of this child is based upon player choice, but for this explanation, I'll be using my choice throughout this story. Now, unfortunately for the boy's mother, she passes away from complications in childbirth.
Yeah, that really sucks, man. That sucks a lot.
Having suffered a cardiac arrest, leaving James to raise their son alone in Vault 101.
All you got is just your dad to be there to get drunk and beat you because he's sad. Oh, wait, that doesn't happen. Maybe that just happened to me.
On his first birthday, the boy is walking. An explorative little fellow. He exits his playpen and reads a book. James shows the boy his mother's favourite Bible passage, which speaks of the fountain of the waters of life. 9 years later,
Which, honestly, having a Bible passage right out the gate in a video game, pretty fucking based. And that's totally not a thing that they do now.
Boy is celebrating his 10th birthday. He speaks with the Overseer, Alphonse, and the Overseer reveals that because he's now 10, he can receive his very own Pip-Boy. PIP standing for Personal Information Processor. You can't actually take the Pip-Boy off, as it's locked with a biometric seal. Anyway, after some banter with...
That seems like it would be very uncomfortable if you just had a device locked to your wrist at all times and it was very uncomfortable.
With his best friend Amata, the daughter of the overseer, and some bullying by some kids at the party, the boy receives his gift from his father, a BB gun. The boy speaks with Jonas, James's assistant. Then they have some fun shooting some targets with the BB gun, along with some radroaches. Another 6 years later, the boy is now 16 and old enough to take something called the GOAT exam, which stands for the Generalized Occupational Aptitude Test.
Honestly, goated.
It determines what kind of job they will have in the vault. James warns the boy about the dangers of the wastes above, that he's safe there in the vault, and that he will be safe there for the rest of his life. After a confrontation with Butch and his lame Tunnel Snakes gang after they were harassing Amata for her father being the overseer, the boy takes the test and is assigned a role within the vault. 3 years later, all hell has broken loose. A load of radroaches have found their way into the vault, and in the chaos...
I forget that, like, it states how old you are in this game, and I think it's the only one that actually gives you an age. And you're like 19 whenever you leave the vault.
James used it as cover and left the vault. Therefore, the overseer is hopping mad and has sent the vault's security forces after the protagonist, assuming that he'd help James escape. The security forces have already killed Jonas, James's assistant, after he'd helped James escape, so the protagonist needs to leave too. Making his way to the vault entrance, the vault door is opened. The protagonist says his goodbyes to Amata and leaves the vault. The protagonist is now a lone wanderer, and after listening to a voice note from his father, he realizes he needs to find out more about where his father went. It's not long before the lone wanderer stumbles across a mound of metal, and behind the door is the town of Megaton. After a brief introduction to the town...
Dude, Megaton. That's, like, usually the first place you'd go, that's not the first place that I go. I completely skip Megaton at the beginning. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should do a playthrough where I don't do that, because usually I just blow the place up.
Town sheriff Lucas Sims. After answering some questions about the town and warning the lone wanderer not to cause trouble, Sims points him to Moriarty's saloon. Speaking with the proprietor, Colin Moriarty, he seems to have met the lone wanderer before, but nearly 20 years ago, when the lone wanderer was still just a baby, and says that they weren't born in the vault at all, nor was James. Moriarty also mentions someone from the Brotherhood of Steel and the fact that brainwashing goes on in the vault. Moriarty isn't very forthcoming in giving up information, but eventually he either gives up information after being convinced and tells the lone wanderer where his father was headed, or the lone wanderer can get crafty and hack Moriarty's terminal at the saloon and find out for himself.
That's usually what I go to whenever I actually leave Megaton not exploded. I'll just go and hack the terminal rather than talking to him, because that's a lot of hassle. I usually don't even care about my speech, because if I don't get what I want, then I'm just gonna kill everybody. That's how I play.
Either way, the lone wanderer discovers that James is headed southeast towards DC and was headed for Galaxy News Radio. With the information and lead on his father, the lone wanderer heads out of the saloon. Also in the bar, and a completely optional side quest, the lone wanderer meets a strange and shady man named Mr.
that
Burke.
guy.
You see, the town of Megaton is built...
Yeah, that's the guy I usually talk to. That's the first thing that I do whenever I go to Megaton. Because I'll skip it, and I'll go gather some items, get some of my stuff more leveled up, and then I'll come and blow the place up.
Around what Burke believes to be a nuclear bomb which is still primed, but unexploded.
I know where some secret items are, like inside a rock just outside of Megaton.
The bomb is revered and worshipped by a cult who calls themselves the Children of Atom, but we'll cover them in the video for Fallout 4. Anyway, Burke makes the lone wanderer an offer to blow up the town of Megaton for him by attaching a fusion...
See, that's why I'm saving the lore for the older games, for like the factions and stuff, because they're mentioned in later games and they are in the later games. So I might as well get the full lore, not just the Fallout 2 Enclave. I want to get all of the Enclave lore from start to finish, or start to present.
Pulse charge to the bomb. If the lone wanderer accepts, then later going to Burke's residence, the Grand Tenpenny Tower, run and owned by Alistair Tenpenny, who considers the town an eyesore on the horizon, they watch as Megaton is obliterated. On the other hand, the lone wanderer can report Burke to Sims. Sims confronts Burke and gets killed, unless of course the lone wanderer can stop Burke before that happens. The lone wanderer can also disarm the bomb and is awarded a house there in Megaton as a reward for disarming it. Anyway, the Lone Wanderer heads towards the GNR building, fighting various...
I'm pretty sure if you take that house in Megaton, you don't get that house in the other place later. I think you can only have one. What is it, Rivet City? I don't remember. But that's usually the one I go for. I don't really care about the Megaton house because it's not that cool.
Various mutated monstrosities and raider gangs along the way. In the ruins of DC, the Lone Wanderer meets some of the paramilitary faction named the Brotherhood of Steel. Speaking with one of the Brotherhood named Sentinel Lions, she reveals that they came under attack from a type of mutant called super mutants, large grotesque beings with ferocity to match. The Lone Wanderer accompanies them to the GNR.
Little known fact, they actually don't age and they can't die. The only way they can die is if they're killed.
Building. Taking out all of the super mutants, there's one more surprise. Outside the GNR building, a super mutant behemoth enters the area and kills one of the initiates.
When I originally played this game, I thought he was a lot bigger. And then when I went back and played it, I was like, oh, well, actually, he's not that big. I thought he was like a giant, like his foot was bigger than me. But that just wasn't the case. I just misremembered it. Maybe I got it mixed up with something that looked similar in Gears of War.
Reddin. After the beast is taken down, the Lone Wanderer enters the building, and they speak with the radio's DJ 3Dog, who reveals that James was there, but that the Lone Wanderer just missed him. Of course, before 3Dog will tell the Lone Wanderer anything, he wants a favor doing: to contribute to the good fight. Now, if the Lone Wanderer manages to convince 3Dog to tell him where his father went to, then he simply tells him without having to carry out the favor for 3Dog. Otherwise, if he fails to convince 3Dog to give up the information, the Lone Wanderer has to travel to the nearby super mutant infested Museum of History, grab a dish off the old Virgo 2 lunar lander there, and replace the dish on the Washington Monument, and that will help spread 3Dog's message out there and across the wasteland.
I usually like to go around and just kill stuff in Fallout, so a lot of times I'll end up doing the thing that the person wants me to do, and I'm like, oh, well, I already did that. I already cleared that place out. And they're like, oh, well, then just go do the thing then.
Whatever happens, 3Dog tells the Lone Wanderer that James mentioned something called Project Purity and was headed for a place called Rivet City to meet a Dr. Lee. The Lone Wanderer eventually finds Rivet City, and the city is actually an old aircraft carrier that since the war has broken in two. Nonetheless, it makes for a great and very secure settlement. Headed inside the...
And it's a really good idea for a settlement. It's probably my favorite place in Fallout that's just like a safe house area.
The old ship and to the science labs, the Lone Wanderer speaks with Dr. Lee. She is surprised to see the Lone Wanderer there. She informs the Lone Wanderer about Project Purity. The project was run by James and Catherine years ago, and its purpose was to purify all of the irradiated water in the tidal basin and the Potomac River via a massive water purifier located inside the Jefferson Memorial. Dr. Lee is skeptical that the project will even work anymore as it's been 20 years, but she tells the Lone Wanderer that James went to their old lab inside the Jefferson Memorial. Clearing out the super mutants that are there, the Lone Wanderer doesn't find James there, but he does find a voice log from James, stating that he's going to go to a Vault 12, as the purifier needs something called a GEC, which stands for the Garden of Eden Creation Kit. James mentioned that the vault is located in some sort of garage, so the Lone Wanderer follows James's instructions and finds the garage. Inside, a hidden basement leads to the vault. The Lone Wanderer is greeted by a robo-brain, who mentions that they are 202.3 years late in their arrival, and then gives the Lone Wanderer a Vault 112 jumpsuit. Inside this vault, it's much different to the vault that the Lone Wanderer grew up in.
I remember this place. They're all stuck in the nerve gear. It's all Sword Art Online down there, man.
This is a load of pods, which are running a virtual reality program, which the occupants are all hooked up to. Thinking his father may be hooked up to that program too, the Lone Wanderer enters the program, Tranquility Lane, with his avatar being a little boy. He speaks with an adult man who seems to think that this program isn't a program at all, that it's their reality, and what's more, the people in the simulation.
Bro, that's been one of the major fears with having kind of virtual reality stuff like this. You plug yourself into the Matrix becomes reality, and you can't tell the difference. And actually, you don't even know that you're in the Matrix anymore.
Can never leave. The man says to seek out Betty in the play park. Speaking to Betty, she's a bit sadistic, and she is revealed to be the avatar of the Overseer, a Dr. Stanislaus Braun, a Vault-Tec scientist.
That's absolutely insane to just pretend that you're a little girl and play as a little girl.
He's the man who created the Gek. Braun refuses to tell the Lone Wanderer anything about James's whereabouts unless they do mean things to the other people in the simulation, such as making Timmy Nesbaum cry and breaking up the marriage of the Rockwells. The Lone Wanderer finds out that James is in the simulation and he's the dog. The Lone Wanderer can refuse to do these horrid things for Dr. Braun as they meet Old Lady Dithers, who is fully aware of the simulation and informs the Lone Wanderer of the abandoned house, and in said house the Lone Wanderer discovers a terminal with a failsafe on it.
Nobody decided that they were going to go into the abandoned house this entire time. Nobody was going to say anything. Why? It's so weird. These people are weird.
And that failsafe is a Chinese invasion force coming to the neighborhood and gunning down all the residents.
Damn.
And this kills them for real too. I covered the full story of this vault in my
it's just like Sword Art Online, man. Way ahead of its time.
Vault to Fallout 3 video, so if you want to know more about this vault, then watch that one. Anyway, speaking with Betty after this, or Dr. Braun, a door opens up, allowing the Lone Wanderer to leave. James is able to leave too, and the two speak. He's going to head back to Rivet City, as he has what he was looking for, information on the whereabouts of the Gek. Meeting up with James again in the Rivet City Science Labs, they both, along with a bunch of Dr. Lee's team after telling her about the Gek, arrive at the Jefferson Memorial. After the project was abandoned 20 years ago, there's been some flooding. So the Lone Wanderer activates the flood control pumps, replaces some fuses, and this allows them to reach the mainframe. Finally, the Lone Wanderer heads through a pipe and turns on the pipe controls, but then they see an armed group arriving, and these assholes are called the Enclave. Rushing back to the Rotunda.
Oh man, the Enclave. They make their entrance just like in Fallout 4, the Brotherhood of Steel. Except the Enclave suck way, way more.
And killing the Enclave attackers on the way, the Lone Wanderer sees James and another scientist behind the screen being held at gunpoint. The man holding them up is a high-ranking Enclave member named Colonel Autumn. He says that by the orders of the president, the facility is now under US government control.
Yeah, I completely forgot that the Enclave was just the US government trying to desperately hang on to power. And who's voting for all these people? None of these people in the Wasteland are voting.
And that James is to assist the Enclave scientists in the operation of the facility. Colonel Autumn callously shoots one of the scientists, Janice, and James agrees to help them.
Oh,
but instead
Janice!
of doing so, he causes a radiation leak inside the sealed room, killing everyone inside, including himself. Distraught, Dr. Lee says they have to evacuate, saying that the Enclave will be coming for them. Dr. Lee knows a series of tunnels that can get them to safety, so the Lone Wanderer escorts the scientists through the tunnels, encountering and killing any Enclave soldiers that they come across. Eventually, the tunnels lead them to the headquarters of the Brotherhood of Steel, a place called the Citadel. Speaking with Elder Lyons, he offers his condolences and tells the Lone Wanderer that the Enclave are an old enemy of theirs and that they're the greatest threat the Capital Wasteland has ever faced, and that they are led by their president, John Henry Eden. After their chat, Dr. Lee directs the Lone Wanderer to a scribe, Rothschild. He directs them to a terminal containing
Rothschild? Rothschild? I don't know if I want this guy to be the leader either. I don't like that last name.
Records from all the vaults in the area. Using the terminal, the Lone Wanderer does indeed find information and discovers that Vault 87 has a Gek. Reporting their findings back to Rothschild, he shows them the location of the vaults on a map. However, he states that getting to Vault 87 from the surface is not going to be possible as there are lethal levels of radiation surrounding it. Rothschild says that the Lone Wanderer may be able to get to it via the Lamplight Caverns. So the Lone Wanderer travels there.
Is this DLC? Is this where the DLC kicks off? Because I actually don't remember this.
Entering the Lamplight Caverns, there's a particularly small problem in the way, and this is in the form of a settlement that calls itself Little Lamplight.
Oh, Little Lamplight.
The settlement
okay,
is
yeah.
entirely comprised of young children, and when they turn 16, they are kicked out and sent to live in another settlement called Big Town. Anyway, the mayor of Little Lamplight, McCready, is a spiky little individual and won't let the Lone Wanderer pass through to the vault. So, after either a speech check or...
So I usually get to this place way before I end up encountering James. Is it just because I explored and I didn't really follow the main plot line? I don't know. It's just like... Isn't when the scientist thing happens in that thing and the lady gets shot, isn't that the end of the game?
Doing him a favor and rescuing some kids captured by a gang of slavers at a place called Paradise Falls, this convinces McCready to open the gate and let the Lone Wanderer pass through. Arriving at Vault 87 after passing through a place known as Murder Pass, the Lone Wanderer finds it swarming with super mutants. and skeletal remains are scattered everywhere. What's more is that some kind of virus was tested on the residents of this vault, turning them into super mutants. However, a lot of their experiments failed.
Yeah, we're gonna probably learn about a lot of those in the next episode.
Again, I covered the full lore for this
We're gonna do a deep dive on the vaults of Fallout 3.
vault in my other video. The Lone Wanderer meets an intelligent super mutant who calls himself Forks. He agrees to help the Lone Wanderer get the Gek they are looking for if they free him in return. The Lone Wanderer can choose whether to kill Forks or to free him. Killing him makes the retrieval of the Gek that much more difficult, as the area is highly irradiated. Forks, being a super mutant and being able to absorb lethal amounts of radiation, means that he's able to retrieve the Gek for the Lone Wanderer. Forks then thanks them and leaves. Upon going to leave the vault with the Gek, the Lone Wanderer is incapacitated by the Enclave, or more specifically by a still alive Colonel Autumn. The Lone Wanderer passes out and is taken back to the Enclave's hidden base called Raven Rock. Autumn, who injected himself with anti-rad medication at the Purifier, later speaks with the now conscious Lone Wanderer and is demanding to know what the code for the Purifier at the memorial is. The Enclave need
Yeah, so this has to be like a bunch of DLC stuff, because I don't remember any of this.
the code to start the water purifier. Before Autumn can learn the code, President Eden speaks over the intercom and demands that Autumn cease his questioning of the Lone Wanderer and that he would like to speak with him. Autumn then leaves. Eden says that he would also like a word with the Lone Wanderer. So, the Lone Wanderer grabs his gear and heads to speak with President Eden. On the way though, Autumn tells the Enclave soldiers to disregard Eden's orders to stand down and instructs them to shoot the Lone Wanderer on sight. Fighting through them, the Lone Wanderer reaches the President and he's a computer. Essentially, President Eden and Colonel Autumn differ in their vision for humanity. Autumn wants the Enclave to be in control of the water purifier so that the Enclave can help the people, therefore drumming up support for the Enclave. Eden, on the other hand, says that he wants to make the country a better place, and to him, that means getting rid of any semblance of mutation that is present in the wasteland, something that his Enclave and the Brotherhood aren't capable of doing themselves.
But isn't, like, most of the people in the Fallout universe mutated at least a little bit? So if they kill all the mutated people, wouldn't that just mean killing almost everybody? Yes. Yeah, I think so. I don't think they care. I think that's what they want.
So he wants the Lone Wanderer, in addition to simply turning the water purifier on, to place a vial containing a specific agent into the purifier, and this will attack the mutation. This will purge the wasteland of mutants such as ghouls and super mutants, or anyone that has any sort of mutation in them, including humans.
Yeah, which is probably going to be most everybody, because there's just radiation everywhere. You're going to get some kind of mutation.
Receiving the vial, the Lone Wanderer can choose what they want to do. On the way to the meeting with Eden, the Lone Wanderer can find a file which contains a destruction sequence, not only for Eden, but for the entire base. Saying this and escaping will ensure that the Enclave's Raven Rock base is completely obliterated. The Lone Wanderer heads back to the Citadel. He explains to Elder Lyons that he found the Gek, but the Enclave have installed it, and only need the passcode in order to start the Purifier. Using a massive robot named Liberty Prime, the Brotherhood stormed towards the Jefferson Memorial.
I remember Liberty Prime. Maybe I did do this. Maybe, but I think this is still DLC. I did play the DLC. I just never really get around to playing it whenever I replay Fallout 3. I usually end up playing the main story and a little bit of the DLCs, and then I quit.
Mowing down any Enclave soldiers in their way. After a long journey to the memorial and killing any remaining Enclave soldiers inside, they enter the rotunda and are confronted by Colonel Autumn.
I'm definitely gonna have to do a Fallout 3 playthrough for my gaming channel, link down there in the description.
And this can either end in blood.
Definitely gonna do a Fallout New Vegas also, and I might do a Fallout 1 and 2, but it's gonna be a long time before I get around to those.
Bloodshed, or Autumn can be convinced to stand down. Either way, the Lone Wanderer and Sentinel Sarah Lyons approach the Purifier. Dr. Lee tells them that the code needs to be inputted into the terminal inside the Purifier. The problem is that a large amount of radiation will likely kill whoever does this, but that whoever does it needs to act fast, as the machine will self-destruct if not activated soon. Sarah can go in, but she ends up dying. The Lone Wanderer can go in and ends up surviving, but if Forks is a companion, due to his...
Okay, you come back here later. Alright, so none of that was the DLC. This actually did happen. Okay, this is the end. See, I remembered going back, I remembered being in this place, so I thought being in the place the first time was the end when the dad dies. Maybe not, maybe not. Maybe this is the actual end. Or maybe this is the DLC and this is the true ending. I don't remember. He's not really very clear about, like, what part of the game this is. No, I think this is the main plot. I think this is the plot of Fallout 3. Man, it's been so long, I don't even remember.
His ability to absorb lethal amounts of radiation, he can go in and he'll survive. The Code to the Purifier is a reference to Catherine's favourite Bible passage, 2:16. Despite surviving, the Lone Wanderer was knocked out, entered into a coma and awakens 2 weeks later.
Broken Steel,
With
here
the
we
Lone
go.
Wanderer back on their feet, even though Project Purity is a success, there's still much more work to do. The Lone Wanderer has been made an honorary member of the Brotherhood of Steel, thanks to what they helped the Brotherhood achieve. But they need to rid the capital wasteland of any remnants of the Enclave. Speaking with Scribe Rothschild, he says that over the 2 weeks the Lone Wanderer was out of action, Liberty Prime and the Brotherhood have been attacking Enclave camps. Wondering how the Enclave are organising their remaining forces, they plan to assault an Enclave-controlled satellite relay station. So the Lone Wanderer meets with Brotherhood forces inside the Rockland car tunnel. The assault doesn't go well, with Liberty Prime being completely destroyed by an orbital strike, but not before the robot managed to punch a hole in the wall. The Lone Wanderer goes through it, and after fighting through some Enclave soldiers, he makes it to a mainframe and downloads encrypted codes from it. Returning to Rothschild, he tells the Lone Wanderer to speak to Elder Lyons.
Yeah, this is where I'm completely lost. I played this, but I don't remember anything, man.
Is concerned that their primary weapon, Prime, has been destroyed, and is doubting whether or not to proceed with their mission. Directing the Lone Wanderer to Paladin Tristan, Tristan says that their resources need to be positioned ready for a counterattack from the...
Bro, why you got a needle coming out your neck? That seems very, like, unproductive, or like extra. I don't understand. Why does it have to have a sharp needle? I don't get that.
Enclave. They developed a tool which will help them, but they need it retrieved from the Olney Power Works. The Lone Wanderer needs to find a Tesla coil in order to allow the Brotherhood to spring a surprise on the Enclave. Old Olney is crawling with death claws, but after fighting their way through them, the Lone Wanderer arrives at the Power Works and locates the Tesla coil. Fighting through various defenses, the Lone Wanderer retrieves the Tesla coil and heads back to the Citadel. Speaking to Tristan, he says that they analysed the data retrieved from the mainframe at the relay station, and they've discovered that the Enclave have a second base of operations at Adams Air Force Base. The only safe way there is via the presidential metro, which was used by the government before the Great War. Headed to White House Plaza, the Lone Wanderer...
Of course, there's going to be all kinds of hidden tunnels everywhere. That's why I like Fallout 3, because it's like based on the main place where the government is. So that's obviously going to be a great place to have a Fallout game, because there's going to be secret tunnels everywhere, and there's going to be a lot of lore about like what was going on with the politics of the world at the time that all the bombs dropped. It's great. I love it.
Enters the metro. After fighting their way through the presidential metro, clearing a security breach that consists of feral ghouls and glowing ones, the Lone Wanderer makes it to Adams Air Force Base. Picking up their orders along with the new weapon, the Tesla cannon, the Lone Wanderer assaults the base and makes it onto a mobile base
never seen
crawler. It appears that
At least I don't remember seeing that.
the Enclave have been capturing and training Deathclaws at this base. As well as that
That's
threat,
crazy.
the Lone Wanderer has
Of course they're going to be testing on stuff. They always do these crazy tests. I bet they'd start turning Deathclaws into humans.
to watch out for vertibirds
Oh wait, that totally happened in like Fallout 1 or Fallout 2, one of those two.
that will fire rocket salvos at them. Using the Brotherhood's distraction as cover, the Lone Wanderer manages to make it to the tower and to the terminal. They can use this terminal to cool down an orbital strike upon the Air Force Base. As a side note, the Lone Wanderer can also choose to turn on the Brotherhood, and this ends up...
Wait. You can blow up Megaton? So there's another way to blow up Megaton? That's crazy.
in the destruction of the Citadel. But anyway, after speaking to a now recovered Sarah Lyons, they board a vertibird, get to a safe distance and watch the fireworks. Back at the Citadel, Elder Lyons says that there is still much work to do, but that they've dealt a massive blow to the Enclave. And that brings the main quest line to an end. In the game's
Bro, so good. So good.
epilogue, which occurs 20 years later, Moira Brown of Megaton, who the Lone Wanderer assisted in creating a wasteland survival guide, is speaking about how the Lone Wanderer changed the wasteland for the better. She details how she's writing a book about the tales of the Lone Wanderer, but to this day it's not really known what happened to the Lone Wanderer after
So Broken Steel is the actual story, and all the other DLCs are just side quests, I guess, that don't really pertain to a main story.
the events of Fallout 3.
Ooh, timeline split. So I was just gonna be tackling the main story. So if you want to watch the rest of this, you can do that on your own time. I've got a link down there in the description if you want to watch the rest of this video. It's great. I highly recommend. I'll probably watch the rest of it on my own time, but I don't want to take the whole video, you know. I just want to get the lore, the main story lore. Maybe I'll tackle the rest of the stuff in a later video, but I want more about the Resource Wars, not just a few minutes. I want more about Vault-Tec and about the Enclave and the Brotherhood and Project Purity. So we'll get to those at another time. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for all notifications.